Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. Today on 10 Paints or Less I'm going to paint 3 wolves in slightly different colours. These are the wolves from Castle Ravenloft the board game. They are not particularly good models, so I'm going to do them incredibly quickly. We are starting with Ulthuan Grey because we're going to paint one wolf white. So, like I say, these are not highly detailed miniatures, so we're just going to try and get them done as quickly as possible. So, we're going to do a base coat of Ulthuan Grey, and we're going to put 2 thin coats on this. I'm watering it down slightly so I get a thin base coat over the top of the black. And like I say, the important thing here is just to get it nice and smooth. You've heard all this before, I know. Like I say, we're going to do 1 grey, and then we're going to do 2 brown. We're going to do one that's a dark brown and one that's more sort of reddy brown. They won't be hugely different, the 2 brown ones, and in most cases the way to paint them is exactly the same. So, fur brown is the base coat for the 2 brown wolves. So sorry if this video gets a little bit confusing, but I'm doing them in sequence, so I'll put the base coat on the grey wolf, and then I'll do the 2 brown ones, and then by the time I've done the 2 brown ones, the grey one is dry and I can go on to the next stage. So I sort of rotate through the 3 miniatures. So this is just a base coat of fur brown going on. I didn't thin down the fur brown. Army Painter paints seem to come out a little bit thinner than Games Workshop paints, and don't generally need it. So we're back here with the white wolf, and we're using white scar to paint over the snout, around the face, the brows, the top of the head, basically just to put some extra definition and distinction on the facial features of the wolf. So there I am, I'm just basically painting over the top of the snout up to the brows and doing the tops of the ears and things like that. And when we come to wash the miniature later, that should just give the face a little bit more pop. You don't need to go crazy with this, just the most important features. And then this were our brown wolves, and we're going to do the same thing here, except we're using monster brown. So we've got the fur brown base coat, and now we're doing monster brown over the facial features, again across the top of the nose, up around the brows, top of the ears. Not worrying too much about being too precise or anything. It doesn't matter at this stage if you go over the eyes, if you paint over the teeth, all that sort of stuff. Just make sure that you get something that you're happy with. If you want to, you can do patterns on the fur on the body, but like I say, I'm trying to do this quickly, so I'm not bothering. While the brown wolves are drying, we are back to the white wolf, and we're using a mix of Reikland Fleshshade and Lamian Medium to wash this model. And it's about 2 parts Lamian Medium to 1 part Reikland Flesh, because I don't want it to be particularly dark. This is going to be a sort of a grey-white wolf, so I want to get some definition on the miniature without being too overpowering. So thinning it out so it's gonna get that definition without being overpowering. And this is a full wash going over the entire miniature. Not being too picky about it. Make sure it doesn't pull too much in any areas. I mean, under the legs it's okay. I try to avoid it. And then with the wolves, we're going to do 1 with Agrax Earthshade. And that's just a coat of Agrax Earthshade over the whole thing. And this wolf will be our darker tone wolf. And again, just going over the whole miniature, not worrying too much about it, but avoiding any deep pooling that might look ugly. And then we're going to do Reikland Fleshshade over the 3rd wolf. And this is actually the only difference we're going to do between the 2 brown wolves, because I don't want them to look massively different. I don't want 3 completely different looking wolves. I wanted the grey wolf and 2 brown wolves, and I just wanted a slight variation in the colour scheme on the 2 browns. So it's not going to be a massive difference, but you can see them side by side there. You can see how the shades have brought out the different details, and the 2 brown wolves are still brown wolves, but they're a little bit different. We are now going to Ulthuan Grey, and this is with the White Wolf, and we are doing a dry brush. This is an all over dry brush again, making sure, obviously when you're doing a dry brush, don't go crazy with it, and follow the contours of the miniature, so you know you're going across the details rather than following the details just to pick out the edges. And now we're going to do a brown fur dry brush on the two wolves. And as you can see, I'm actually dry brushing with the same colour that I used as the base colour. So Ulthuan Grey was the base colour on the Grey Wolf, and that's also the first highlight, and the same with the brown fur on the wolves. So again, you can see where there's the flow of the tail is, I've gone across it rather than following the flow lines, and that just means that you're hitting those high edges rather than getting paint into the recesses of the miniature. So as long as you're doing that, you'll pick up the detail fine. And here we are back with our Grey Wolf. The next stage is another dry brush using white scar in this case, which is the paint that was used on the face of the wolf. And this is just to again highlight out the face and the tops of the shoulders, the spinal column, the ridge down the back, the top of the tail, just the highest points of the miniature where there would be the most light. And then we're going to do the same thing with the brown wolves, where we go back to our monster brown, and we're going to do a top highlight of dry brush with that as well. Obviously with dry brushing, the important thing is just to make sure you don't get too much paint on your brush. So you put some paint on the brush, wipe most of it back off on a paper towel or whatever, and then just lightly flick the brush across the miniature to hit those details. And now we're going to Averland Sunset, and we are going to paint the eyes on the wolves using an insane detail brush. I do not have steady hands, so I'm thinning down the Averland Sunset, and then I'm going to brace the miniature against the table with my hand. My other hand is braced against the table. I'm taking a deep breath, and then I'm going to carefully apply the yellow to the eyes. So that will take a little bit of time, and you've got to try and be neat with it, and then you get that result. And we're going to do the same with the brown wolves, and then after we've done the yellow, we're going to put a dot of black, Abaddon Black in each eye, and also some black on the nose to complete the face. And then that is what you end up with. You see just the black dot in the Abaddon Black over the Averland Sunset just to complete the eyes. We're now going to white scar, and that's because we're going to pick out all of the teeth. Again, I'm trying to be careful, so I'm, because my hands are not steady, I'm bracing myself against the table and just picking out the teeth, the most raised points of the teeth. And that's what it looks like on one of the brown wolves. And now we're going to Nuln Oil, and we're just going to actually shade inside the mouth. So in the negative space around the teeth, just to make the teeth pop a little bit more. And obviously to darken up the mouths, because the mouths will still have predominantly base coat and wash in them from earlier. So we're just going to darken them down, make the teeth pop a little bit more. There we go, smiley happy wolf. We're now going to our Astrogranite paint for the base. We're going to paint that on all of them, and the important thing here is that Astrogranite is lumpy and the wolves are very low to the base, so you just need to be really careful. You need to push the paint underneath the miniature, being careful not to get it on the actual miniature itself. It takes a little bit of patience, and you will find that when you're pushing it right under a very low bit, you don't get as much texture on the base from the paint, because you're spreading the paint out more. But you just make sure you do a clean job. And then Ulthuan Grey is going to be just a highlight over the grey of the base. So using a small dry brush, being careful not to dry brush over the feet of the wolves and things like that, just to pick out the texture on the texture base. And that finishes them off, apart from painting some Abaddon Black around the rim of the base to complete the look. And there we go. That is 3 wolves in 3 slightly different colorways. ready to go onto the table in very, very quick time. I hope this has been helpful to some people, and I will see you all again very soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.